And welcome into this episode of Time Out with the Guys. I am Brad Burton. He is Carter Foley. Carter, good to be here tonight.
Yeah, good to be here as well, man.
It's been a pretty crazy day so far. I think we can all say, with what's been happening around the NBA and in the playoffs, but of course there's a lot of bigger things going on here today. Normally we were talking about probably some playoff matchups right now, but. Today, though, the NBA, all games were postponed due to teams boycotting. The first was the Bucks and Magic. They were the first two, or that was the first game to be called off, and then the rest seemed to follow there after that. And it's been a pretty rough couple days here, not just in the NBA, but all around in the United States, especially up in Kenosha County in Wisconsin due to the shooting up there. It's just been a very emotional time for many of these players because we know that predominantly majority of the NBA, about over 75% of the players are black, and these guys, really they take these types of issues very personal, and I think right now they're pretty fed up, and they have every right to be. Because when you look at what's been happening, not just over this past week, but in the last couple months, the first was with George Floyd. You look with the Breonna Taylor, so many other things happening, and the players are really using this type of. They're using their platforms to use their voices and really say, "Hey, we're athletes, but we're also humans at the end of the day too." And I think with the NBA games being postponed today, this was the right thing to do. We don't know the emotions going on with these players right now, and coaches and the owners, whatever the case may be. And I think it's important for these guys to maybe come together, see what they can try to do, and just go from there. Who knows what the future also holds for the playoffs too, because this could not just be a one-day thing. This could carry on into tomorrow, the next day. Who knows, really?
Yeah. You summed it up really well. Obviously, the boycotts, they haven't really come as a surprise. I think at some point you knew after all of the players were getting involved in, pre-game or post-game media, they've been talking about the incident. And even, before all this happened too, the Raptors and the Celtics talked about even postponing their couple of their games, even game one including. So I think it was just a matter of time. And I think, because Milwaukee and the Magic were supposed to play today at 3 p.m., I think, it really set home. Obviously, it was in Kenosha, Wisconsin, which was about an hour away from where the Bucks actually play. So, I thought they did a really good job. And you have to assume, Giannis hasn't really said anything about the whole incident, but you could definitely tell that him and probably other veterans like George Hill, and also Sterling Brown, who's also in an incident 2 years ago with the police as well. So, all those guys probably talked about it, and they decided that this was the best thing to do. And I'm glad also that the other teams that were supposed to play today also postponed their games. I think that was also the right decision. And, I wouldn't be surprised if, some of the games tomorrow are going to be postponed, if not all of them. And future games too. And like you mentioned too, what does this mean for the postseason? I don't know. It's still up in the air. There's been a lot of talk, and there's a lot of analysts that have been actually in discussion with some NBA players saying that that this could just be the end of the season, just like that. No more playoffs, no more NBA finals, and then they'll just play next season. But yeah, it's definitely interesting to see. And LeBron James also too, he posted on social media, there was a graphic, a lower third, that basically said, games are postponed, and he responded, boycotted, not postponed. So again, he's obviously the face of the NBA, so that leaves questions right there about the future of the season.
It sure does. And when you say games are not postponed or boycotted, so this tells you, this at least tells me that this is going to be carrying on for quite some time. Definitely the NBA and the Players Association might have to meet up or come together in some sort of way to see what they can try to do here. But with the Milwaukee Bucks and Sterling Brown, that's a great example right there, because we know, like you said, 2 years ago, back in 2018, he was at a Walgreens parking lot, and he parked in a handicap spot, and then the police came, and he admitted I think he knew his mistake, because you can't park in a handicap spot if you don't have the permission to. But then they called more cops to the scene, and eventually the whole situation just completely got out of control. They tased him. He was doing nothing wrong.
Yeah.
He pulled his hands out of his pocket. He was doing everything he could, and the police just, they did wrong. And I think that's just shows you right there too how players, especially African American players, how they feel when they go out in public and stuff. Now, again, like I said, Sterling Brown, he was wrong for doing that, and I'm sure he would admit it. He would take responsibility for parking in the handicap spot. But when you are following the orders of the officers, you're cooperating with them, you're doing what they say, and they just use excessive force, and that's when I think they get concerned. And look, I don't know what it's like to be a black, be a black person when you go out, when you go outside, because who knows what's going to happen. It's just, we live in a society today where there's just so many scary things out there now today, and I think the leadership needs to be better here. And I think this is what these players are doing, because it really annoys me when people say how they're athletes, they're millionaires. Yes, they are. They make a lot of money. Yes, they have a really good life. Yes, they have nice homes. But at the end of the day, they're human too. So I think when it comes down to these issues, we have to understand that these guys, who knows what's happening in their personal lives, that they've been pulled over and they've been treated badly. We don't know that. I mean, that's when we saw Colin Kaepernick start to take a knee for the national anthem. And ironically, 4 years ago was the day, August 26, 2016, Colin Kaepernick took a knee.
Wow.
And now here we are 4 years later. And now we're seeing the NBA games being boycotted. So 4 years later, to the exact day, this is still an ongoing issue. And it's been an ongoing issue for many, many years, back in the 1960s, back in the Civil War era with slavery. So I think for these players, especially the African-American ones, they're fed up. And we saw Doc Rivers today. He was very emotional about talking today, saying how, they love America, but America doesn't love them back. I thought that was very well put by him, especially Doc Rivers. He's an NBA legend coach. No doubt he's going to be going into the Hall of Fame when his coaching career is all said and done. So I think for these players to boycott these games, I thought personally, hey, if they feel it's the right thing to do, then you should do it, because I don't know how they feel. So, and I'll never know how they feel. But the thing I can at least try to do is try to understand where they're coming from, and I do. And to say that they're spoiled, rotten brats, if they're spoiled, rotten brats, they wouldn't be doing this type of sacrifice. They're not getting paid for this. TV networks are losing a ton of money. The fans are not going to be able to see the games. And for the players themselves, and especially for the Bucks, because they're the ones that technically forfeited this game, so who knows? The Magic should get the win out of this whole deal, but at the end of the day, that does not matter. So I think for the players to say they're spoiled, well, you're not being spoiled to me if you're taking a big sacrifice. I'll tell you that right now.
Yeah, I think you put it really good. I think they're not getting paid for missing games, and if they do sacrifice the season, obviously that's a lot of money, especially for those teams that could possibly go to the finals, like the Bucks. So they'll be missing out on a lot of money, but at the end of the day, it's not about money. To a lot of those guys, it's about doing what's right. Using their platform to get their point across, and they want change. And I think, they're doing the right thing by protesting the games. And if it is for the rest of the season, or if it's just for a few games, only time will tell. But yeah, they obviously have my full support. Obviously, watching that video, it's definitely it's hard to watch, just to say the least. Seven bullets to the back. Obviously, it's very excessive force, in my opinion. I think there's other ways to do things like that rather than 7 shots with a pistol. So, yeah, it's definitely a tough time. But yeah, give credit to the NBA players that definitely sacrificed playing today. And, like I said, would not be surprised if that happens again tomorrow and for future games to come.
Yeah, absolutely. It's definitely been quite the time right now. Just what's happening here in the past several months, like I talked about there with the George Floyd incident there up in Minneapolis, and then so many other incidents happening too before that, after that too. And I think people are just fed up now today, and they just want change to happen. That's all they want is just change. They're not disrespecting anything. They just want change. They're calling for it, and kudos to them for doing that. I think this is the time where we just like I said, we need to come together right now. We're obviously in a very divided time right now in this nation, and I think now's the time where instead of hating on each other and criticizing each other, we need to come together and try at least to understand where people are coming from. So hopefully that does happen. But unfortunately, right now in these types of times, I just don't see it happening with all we have going on with the leadership and just with several other things happening, and not just in the NBA games are being postponed, but the Milwaukee Brewers and the Cincinnati Reds game was also postponed today too. Obviously, with Milwaukee, the Brewers playing there, the Reds were scheduled to play the Brewers this evening, but that game was postponed after a team meeting there with Milwaukee, and I'm sure they consulted with the Reds too on what they wanted to do. So far, that's the only game I know in Major League Baseball that's been postponed, mainly because Milwaukee, with the state of Wisconsin being under a lot of scrutiny right now.
Yeah.
Definitely, I think this was the right call also for them to do. Just make sure that that these players are going to be safe, because we don't know what's going to happen, because the rioting can get out of control very quickly. And a scene like Miller Park, granted no fans are there, which is probably a good thing now at this time, but still players being there, you don't want to put them in danger in any sort of way. So I thought this was the smart move by them, by Major League Baseball, to postpone this game, scheduled for a different time. So I thought that was a smart move by both teams and by MLB as well.
Yeah, definitely the right idea. To just put those games or put that game, on the back burner, let things kind of settle down. Obviously, things could get a little bit more chaotic in Milwaukee with the protests and things like that. Obviously, when the George Floyd incident happened, it was not great. Just Minneapolis was destroyed after just a few days. Obviously, a lot of looting and things like that were happening. But yeah, I mean, it's definitely a right decision to just put that game, put it on hold, I guess, for a couple days or whenever things kind of cool down, and hopefully things get better from here. Hopefully positive change is getting started, but it always seems like there's kind of like a movement, right? And it goes on for a few days, few weeks, and then it kind of fizzles out again, and then we end up back here with a new incident, just like Jacob Blake. So, it's just going to be interesting to see, and I really hope that this is kind of the straw that breaks the camel's back, and hopefully everybody can get the change that that they're looking for with the police brutality and against African Americans. So I definitely think that's the right thing to do. Yeah, we'll just have to wait and see. It's definitely kind of a tough topic to talk about and get our voices heard on it, but I definitely think it's really important. So I'm glad we both talked about this today.
Absolutely, and kind of still talking about it right here. Kind of going back to the NBA now. Of course, on the NBA on TNT pregame show, we know Kenny Bajet Smith. He's an analyst on there. He walked off the set today to be to say to the players, "Hey, I'm with you guys." So I thought that was very. Probably took a lot of guts, I'm sure, to do that, but at the end of the day, he did, and he thought what was right, and I applaud him for that. And also, too, Cubs outfielder Jason Hayward. The Cubs are playing in Detroit this evening, but Jason Hayward, who is the Cubs right fielder, decided to sit out the game tonight. Just, again, being African-American, I don't know how he feels, but I'm sure he feels some sort of, I don't want to say anger, but some sort of, hey, I feel tonight I just need to think about what's going on, just, try to, see what I can do here. And I think for Jason Hayward, he did what was right. And the Cubs are still scheduled to go on, and I know it's kind of been going back and forth with the Cubs still playing, because why would you leave a teammate just hanging like that? But he still encouraged his teammates to play, so I thought he understood that, hey, I still want these guys to go out and play. I don't know what the reasons were, because we know with baseball this season being a very shortened season, you don't want to have any more postponements, because with all the postponements happening, you have to have double headers, all that stuff. The rest might not be there 100% for the players. So I think for Jason Hayward, he wanted his guys to still go out there and play. But I thought for him, though, to sit out tonight, consulting with Cubs manager David Ross. He did what he felt was right. And once again, I applaud these guys. If they don't want to play tonight because of what's been happening here with all the pain and suffering that's been happening here in the United States, again, I applaud them for doing that because they want to use these platforms to show, hey, we're not just athletes, we're also human too. At the end of the day, it's like it's like with the NFL, with what's been happening with the national anthem. Yes, they make a lot of money. Yes, they show up to the stadium that they have a noon kickoff. They show up to the stadium at 9:30 a.m., get stretched, warmed up, get taped up for that time being, from noon to 3:30, 4 o'clock at the latest. They're done playing, go talk to the media, get cleaned up. By 5 o'clock, 5:30, they're back home. They're civilians just like we are.
Nope.
Plain and simple, just like that. So, again, they are human just like we are, and I think it's important that we at least try to understand what the issues are and try to work with them to come up with something.
Yeah, I think at the end of the day too, as fans, obviously we both love sports, and there's thousands, millions of people around the world that love sports, but we have to realize too that it's just a game, and there's real life issues that are happening in the world, and this is one of them. So definitely don't blame anybody or any teams for not playing tonight. I think that's obviously the right decision at the end of the day. Jason Hayward obviously, is he's probably has his reasons obviously, and I'm still glad that he encouraged his team to go out there and hopefully get a win for his sake. But I'm also glad too that the organizations, managers, coaches, and the higher ups at that level are understanding the players too, and they're not forcing them to play, because that, obviously we know that would be very bad for players and the higher ups too of organizations, because then at that point you're not playing because of them and all the other issues at that point. So it's good that everybody has each other's backs in this situation. Obviously everybody knows at the higher level, the managers and the coaches and the GMs and the owners and everything have the players' backs in this situation, and they know it's time for change as well. So it's just obviously a hard topic to talk about, but it's definitely good that it's happening now. And, hopefully, like I mentioned earlier, positive change occurs because of this.
Absolutely. This is what you want, is these guys to come out and I think just try to make a difference, and not just in sports, but also life in general too. So I definitely applaud them for doing that. I think this is a very smart move on their parts. And are they going to get criticized for it? I'm sure they will, but that's just people. Some people just don't. Some people are jerks out there, and unfortunately, those jerks will never go away. But I think right now, though, we just need to understand and stand with them. Hey, that they're not alone. We support them, and as sports fans, yes, we want to see these games. But at the end of the day, there's bigger things to life than sports. I think we all know that. So I think right now we're just at a time where we just need to come together and try to move on. All right, now moving on to sports here. Boy, it's hopefully with what's been happening in the NBA before all this went down and stuff, though, there's pretty good matchups happening. I think we can agree on that. Boy, a lot of good ones here. The Lakers and Blazers, Mavs, Clippers. But let's start off first though with the Lakers and Trailblazers here. This was Game 4. Game 5 was scheduled to supposed to be tonight, but as we all know, that game was postponed. We'll see if the NBA does ever decide to get back going. We'll see. It's just a day-by-day process right now. But moving on now to Game 4, the Lakers. Yeah. LeBron James.
Kobe Day, too.
What's that?
Kobe Day.
It is Kobe Day, yes. Sunday was Kobe's. He would have been 42 years old, and then on a Monday, which was 8/24, out in Orange County, California, that is Kobe Bryant Day, because Kobe wore number 8 and 24 during his 20-year stint in the NBA, all with the Lakers. So that's Kobe is he's a legend and always will be, and we'll definitely talk about him too later on here in the show. So I don't want to spoil anything with that, but the Lakers though, LeBron James, like I mentioned. I think in Game 2, he scored only just 10 points. The Lakers still won, but now I'm thinking, okay, is he going to be able to kind of get back to his old form? Because he is 35 years old. He is getting up there in age, but still very dominant, still very athletic, keeps himself in phenomenal shape, especially after last year when people were saying he was washed up due to all the injuries he had. But I think in Game 3 he scored 38 points, and then it's like, yep, he's back.
Yep.
Okay, never mind, 10 points. Okay, it's all good.
Yep.
No big deal. But Game 4 though, tremendous game by the Lakers. Started off on a 15-0 run in the first quarter.
Yep.
Overall, it was just a very good game by the Lakers. I mean, the Trailblazers, they fought back. They played very hard. Of course, for the Blazers, concern arose when Damian Lillard did suffer a right knee injury. Came back as a sprain, so luckily it was not a severe injury. I know Twitter was having a little field day with it, possible ACL tear or something with the knee, because ACL tear, boy, if any players were to suffer that type of injury right now, they're not only going to be out for the rest of the playoffs, but probably definitely in the next season too, most likely. So good thing for Dame, not a severe injury, but enough to keep him out for what was supposed to be Game 5. But of course, as we all know right now, that game was postponed. But yeah, the Lakers really just overall, I mean, they've just been playing very competitive basketball, not just in the bubble, but all in the NBA before the season got put to a halt because of the coronavirus pandemic. But since it came back, though, Anthony Davis has really done a great job. LeBron's been playing really good as well. Kind of been a little up and down at first, but boy, the past 2 games, 30-plus points. Even had a triple-double in the first game as well. So really starting to see LeBron kind of come together right here, starting to play more with his teammates, starting to share the ball a bit more too, which I think is going to help the Lakers out in the long run if they do keep on playing. But, yeah, overall for the Lakers, lost the first game, and you're thinking, okay, this could go back and forth, possible to a game 6 or 7, but now they're up 3-1 in this series. If they do it all, get a chance to close out the series. Does Portland come back to at least win Game 5? Do they try and stay with it? Because it wouldn't shock me if they do keep on playing competitive. Portland is what I'm talking about, because we know they're not going to back down one bit. Dame, if he keeps on playing good, if he does come back from this injury, same with Carmelo too. So I think the Trailblazers, they got something left in the tank as well, even though they're down 3-1 right now, because this series is not over just yet.
Yeah, and I think only time will tell. Obviously, if this series does get continued, obviously Dame needs to come back in order for them to even have a chance at winning Game 5. So if he's not back, I obviously give the Lakers the edge in Game 5 to close it out 4-1. But yeah, give the Lakers credit. The last 2 games, they've really just been extremely dominant, especially on Mamba Day. I mean, they went off to that really hot start, and it was interesting too. It's probably the only time that hopefully the only time that there will actually be playoff basketball in August. So that was kind of the one day that the Lakers really had to kind of go all out for Kobe Bryant's Mamba Day. And I mean, yeah, they sure did. And obviously, the Lakers did win by 20, but it did not seem that close at all. I mean, at one point they were probably winning by 35 or 40 points in the game, and obviously, just put the bench players in, let them do their thing. Obviously, naturally, as the game goes on, the Trailblazers come back and score more points, and that's just kind of the nature of when you play your bench players. So, yeah, no, give the Lakers credit. They're really starting to kind of figure something out here. And perfect time to do it, but then again, we have to keep in mind how long will this boycott go on for the players, and how long will it be? I mean, if it's 2 or 3 weeks, I mean, then at that point maybe there's different teams that are kind of out of grooves and everything. They're not practicing, so I mean that again could be kind of something to look out for as well for all teams, not just the Lakers. So. It's gonna be interesting to see, but yeah, if the Trailblazers want to have a chance in Game 5, Carmelo has to play good. Obviously, he did have a really good game in Game 4, and CJ and Dame have to have lights out performances, just like they did in Game 1. But yeah, we'll just have to wait and see. But overall, yeah, 2 really dominant performances by the Los Angeles Lakers.
Absolutely, and I don't know if you saw at one point the Lakers were up 24-8.
Yeah, I did see that.
24-8. So
yeah, Kobe was in the building for that one.
He definitely was. Kobe, he's. It's been a tough year, as we all know, just on what's been happening. But no doubt, and the Lakers, they're playing every day for Kobe and his daughter Gianna. No doubt, this was, they're playing with a lot of passion right now. A lot of, just a lot of heart and character with that team and what's been happening so far this entire year. But no doubt, being up 24-8, it's just. What are the odds of that happening?
Yeah.
So that was really cool to see, and I know Twitter again was having a good day with that, with with again 24-8. It's just holy cow. That's just amazing.
Yeah.
Right there. Kind of reminded me of after after the tragedy happened, we saw players taking the 24-second clock violation, and then they were taking the 8-second backcourt violation. So really, it's just, oh boy, what ways to honor Kobe. It's just getting so much better. And then to have basketball in August, I know this is probably not what we expected, but still that play though on Kobe Day is just amazing. So really glad to see just these still tributes to him, and I know they'll probably carry on for quite some time, probably forever, as we all know. And with the NBA All-Star award named now the Kobe Bryant Award, so that's really a good way to honor him. And definitely, if the NBA does decide to keep on doing the playoffs, because we know that they are boycotting right now, hopefully that the Lakers do go out and win this for the Bryant family. I know that's definitely been a hard time for them, and but definitely though, hopefully we have that somewhat silver lining to look back on and smile about. So overall, though, for the Lakers themselves, a big win for them in Game 4. If they do have a Game 5, definitely be interesting to see if they can close the series out, or if the Blazers come back, if Dame comes back from the knee injury. If Dame does come back, we can't expect him to be hopefully healthy right away. He could still be dealing with an injury, but good enough to play still. But I'm sure he'll still continue to go out there and play as hard as he can. Now to the Mavs and Clippers game. Boy, this was before actually Game 4 was something. Boy, that was
exciting.
That was probably the most exciting playoff game I've ever watched. Probably actually from last year too. Yep. There were some pretty good playoff matchups though, but a little bit of controversy happening here though with the Clippers. Doncic hits the game-winning shot in Game 4, 3-point shot, which really shocked me. Carter, I remember you were going pretty crazy because I had the game on mute because I was doing something. I was kind of going back and forth, like turning around, looking at it, and then all of a sudden I hear you scream. And I turn around and look at my TV, and I see the Mavs celebrating. It's like, oh, the Mavs, won. They must have hit a game-winning shot. But Doncic, they showed the replay of him hitting the, game-winning shot. And I was like, oh yeah, that's why Carter's. Why Carter was, going nuts back there. Okay, all's good now. But then in Game 5, though, Marcus Morris. That was
not surprising from him.
No, he's not. He's been involved in some controversies before, and of course, he says he didn't do it on purpose, which they're all going to say that. Mm-hmm. But I know I've seen the hashtag suspend Marcus Morris going on Twitter sometime. But I just think overall, though, just to do that, I mean, come on, show some class out there. I mean, Luka's a great player. He's a great young player. He's on the rise of being like in this new generational talent there with Zion, Trae Young, all those guys. But just to do that, I thought was just a very unclassy move. I mean, you have to understand where these guys are playing at, like where they are on the court. You just don't step on a guy's ankle when they're just standing still. That never happens. But whatever, it is what it is now at this point. But yeah, definitely though for the Mavs and Clippers, this has definitely been a fun playoff series to watch so far. I know it's been kind of going back and forth a little bit there, but boy, the Mavs will really have been impressing me so far. I know it's again with Doncic, game-winning shot, and then he gets injured. But this past game, no doubt that the Clippers, though, they were on fire from right from the get-go. 154 points. I mean, what do you expect from that?
Yeah.
So, boy, and the thing that stuck out to me was Paul George. I mean, Paul George really played phenomenal in this past game, and something curious to me that happened overall. I know he's been dealing with. He said he's been dealing with some depression lately due to being in the bubble. Right there, but though in this past game, no, he came out. Him and Kawhi just balled out completely. I mean, look at that, 30-plus points for both those guys. That right there just shows you this is what the Clippers need to do day in and day out, to have these guys come, perform great together. Because if those two guys can do it together, boy, the Clippers are no doubt going to be a dangerous team to watch out for. And I'm definitely excited to see how this is all going to play out. Obviously, with the Clippers now being in the series 3-2, now they look for a chance to close out the series. But the Mavs right now, though, like I said, I've been impressed by them. But now is this where they can show who they really are, show some of that toughness, that hunger in order to come out and tie this series up? I mean, that's what I'll really be paying attention to. But boy, for Paul George, though, to talk about how he was kind of depressed being in the bubble and stuff, I think he just felt pretty situated, like he couldn't go out and do much. And that's why we started to see the struggles from him recently. He's not making any excuses. He's being honest, which I applaud him for that. But I think, though, for him to come out in this past game to overcome all the critics, because I know Skip Bayless has been kind of going after him there on Undisputed. But no doubt, though, Paul George, just, again, phenomenal game by him. And Kawhi, of course, overall, just a great performance by those two guys.
Yeah, obviously, Paul George is a big reason why the Clippers, they win that game. He's been struggling this whole series, having very, very low shooting percentages. And, the Clippers definitely needed him to have a great game, to take the lead again in the series. And he did just that. And obviously Kawhi is, as consistent as ever, been averaging 25, 30 points throughout the playoff games this season. So not surprising from him. Just another great performance again from the Finals MVP. But yeah, obviously the Mavericks did not play their best basketball. But yeah, a lot of that is due to Kristaps Porzingis still being out the last two games. So obviously that's hurt them a lot. It's going to be interesting to see too, how long, like we mentioned, it's kind of interesting talking about, the boycotting and stuff, because these injuries, if the players do decide to, to come as a union and decide, hey, okay, we're going to play at this day or wherever, it could help, the injured teams or the injured players that are on playoff teams right now kind of get back healthy and have a chance to play in these future games. So, I mean, that's kind of another thing to look at. So it could play in favor of Dallas if they ever do, if they do come back. But obviously, kind of like we mentioned already in the beginning of the show, would not be surprising if the games are postponed tomorrow and for the foreseeable future. So, but yeah, if the Mavericks want to have a chance to win Game 6, they definitely have to have Kristaps Porzingis. Luka needs them out there. The Mavericks are just a little bit shy of bench power compared to the Clippers. I mean, the Clippers have so many weapons, and Paul George and Kawhi, the dynamic duo, as that graphic just showed earlier. When they're both playing good, it's hard to stop them. So Porzingis needs to be out there with Doncic and the rest of the Mavericks in order for them to have a chance of winning Game 6.
Absolutely. I think when you look at a guy like Luka Doncic, no doubt he is kind of, you can say, the face of the Mavericks right now, but he definitely needs Kristaps Porzingis out there right now. I think just having those guys out there, it's not all just one player specifically, but it really comes down to who do you have around you. And no doubt Porzingis and Luka make a great combination together, like with Paul George and Kawhi Leonard. So I think it's always important to kind of have that second guy there with you. Now, of course, you can look at Kristaps Porzingis. Now, is he on top? Personally, I think you can put him and Doncic both at the top personally, but I definitely think, though, for Kristaps Porzingis, he needs to come back for Game 5 if the Mavs do want to have a chance. Certainly, he's not going to maybe be on fire right away, but definitely just having him out there will help the Mavs out if they do have a game. If they do have a Game 6 here, so we'll see what happens with that. But overall, it's just been a really, up until now, it's been a really fun playoff. All these playoff series happening here with so many good teams, a lot of competitive teams, so many great players happening. And now kind of going back here to the Bucks here once again. But this time, though, this was Game 4 for them against the Orlando Magic. Boy, it seems like after the Bucks and the Lakers lost their first games in the series, both teams have been able to really come out and just play lights out. And for the Bucks, they were able to do that here in this past game. It's just really been a phenomenal performance by them. Obviously, Giannis, the Greek freak, for a reason. Also, Chris Middleton, too, having a good game as well. Having those two guys, again, great combinations coming together right here. And these guys have done such a great job with that. Brook Lopez getting also 10 points there as well, so making his presence well known. Wesley Matthews also doing a good job out there for the Bucks as well. So overall, it's just been a really good series for Milwaukee. Obviously, now what's been happening up in Kenosha, Wisconsin, just with all the, you know what I mean. There's just so many things I could say right now, but I'm not going to say it. But I think, though, this was a good win for the Bucks, no doubt. If they do have a Game 5 here, I think they could easily close out this series. The Magic, though, again, they could say, hey, we're not out of this yet, down 3-1. I get it. The Bucks have the upper advantage right now. But, hey, I've seen a lot of 3-1 series come come back to tie the series, and then the team that was down, they win it, like with the Golden State Warriors back in 2016.
Yep.
Or no, sorry, the Cavs there. Excuse me. Tough scene for the Warriors, though, of course.
Yeah. They also did come back too. The Warriors against the Thunder.
That's true.
So,
Exactly. So I think for teams to be down 3-1, like the Cavs and the Warriors back in that playoff series against the Thunder, to come back and win, that just shows you about the fight that teams will still have here in these types of situations. So I think it's always important to, as a reminder, hey, they're up 3-1, but hey, the team that's down, though, they're more hungrier to come out and win. So I think that's what we need to understand as fans of the game, and knowing that, hey, yes, Milwaukee, they have a terrific team. Giannis is no doubt just having a phenomenal season, especially when they came back from the bubble. So I definitely think for Milwaukee, they could easily close out this series. But for the Magic, hey, they're not done yet. They got something left, I could feel. So we'll see what happens.
Yeah, definitely. Obviously, Game 5 would have been this afternoon. We would have known the results, but obviously because of the protests, they did not play. But Game 4 certainly was, pretty much all Milwaukee. Kind of like you mentioned, once the Lakers and Bucks both lost Game 1, which is kind of surprising as fans of the NBA to kind of watch that happen. But yeah, they've just kicked on the burners and really have just played well. Giannis yesterday too just won Defensive Player of the Year. A little controversial. A lot of people thought AD maybe should have won it, but still both guys are hell of players, especially on the defensive end. But yeah, Giannis and Middleton both had really good games, combining for 52 points. So that's a lot of points right there for the stars of the game. But yeah, I definitely think the Magic could give the Bucks a run for their money. Obviously, we saw it in Game 1. They played really good basketball. I think they just have to kind of get back to that, get Vucevic a little bit more involved too. And also Aaron Gordon not playing for them has ultimately hurt them down the stretch of this series. So obviously, I know it kind of sounds like a broken record, but, depending on how long these boycotts go on, in the NBA, it could help a player like Aaron Gordon come back. Don't know how long he is injured for. Don't know the extent of the injury, but if he can get back out there for the Magic, definitely could be a little bit more contested against the Bucks than if he's not out there.
Yeah, absolutely. I think definitely Aaron Gordon has been a big part of the Magic, kind of what they were a couple years ago, especially after Dwight Howard was traded from there to the Lakers the first time back in 2012. Grant, it's been over 8 years now since that happened, but I think the Magic, they kind of just been in that situation. They're just trying to kind of find ways to bring in players to get back to that playoff contention team. But I think kind of had to do some rebuilding from the draft and to see what you can do there in free agency. Really, I think that's helped them out a lot, just to kind of try and figure things out, get some new coaches in there, and just get like a new foundation set. And definitely Aaron Gordon is that guy. I think you can build around and put together a very solid team. And for the Magic, I do. Again, that's really credit to them for doing that. I know it's kind of been, the really, tough, couple years since, since they kind of weren't the team that they used to be with Dwight Howard. But now, though, they're kind of getting back to that, formation there. So I think that's going to be a really big thing for them. And no doubt Aaron Gordon is going to keep on getting better and better each and every season. Granted, I know he's been in the league now since 2014, but still very young. Still very competitive, still has a lot left to prove. So I definitely think Aaron Gordon is going to be somebody to watch out for as years carry on there with the Magic if he does decide to stay there. Now with the Miami Heat and the Indiana Pacers, no doubt the Heat, they've said to the Pacers, bye-bye. 4-0 sweep there. Miami brought their brooms very quickly. Yep. And for the Pacers, another first-round playoff exit for them. That sounds.
I just said tough for them the last 5 years.
For a second, I said tough scene.
That
is a tough scene
too. Yeah,
that is
tough scene as well.
Yeah, it's a tough scene. But for Miami, it's just been a really phenomenal season for them. Jimmy Butler, who they signed over in free agency from Philadelphia. Boy, it's kind of hard to believe that Jimmy Butler's been playing now. This was his fourth team. Now Chicago, Minnesota, Philadelphia, and now Miami. But either way, he did a phenomenal job there, and I know Miami's really done a good job putting together solid players there too. Pat Riley, their front office guy, he's done a really good job there, especially after LeBron left in 2014, and then Chris Bosh eventually left too due to health issues. D Wade came back for the little stint there, which I thought was very cool to see him close out his career there with the team that he won 3 championships with. But now to see the Heat, though, kind of maintain this type of dominance, I think has been very impressive. And for the Pacers, well, of course, I know they did fire their coach, Nate McMillan, which we'll get into here later on. But for the Pacers, it has been kind of incredible to see them. They had Paul George there. They traded him away to Oklahoma City when he said he was not going to re-sign with them when he had 1 year left on his contract. But they were able to maintain a really good team still, going to the playoffs, having a good amount of wins. But the first round playoff exits, though, that's just not really going to help you out that much because look, that you didn't win any playoff games. This is basically like 4 extra games here for you just in the regular season. So I think for the Pacers right now to get a new voice in there, a new coach, which again we'll get into here later on, I think is going to be very important for them. So, but like I said though, for the Miami Heat, boy, I've just been impressed by them. They've been able to maintain this type of dominant performance still, going to the playoffs. I think this is a time where they can kind of now advance even further than what they were when they had LeBron, Bosh, and D Wade there with them. So I think this is going to be a great time to watch the Miami Heat, see what they can do. Because, like I said, if the NBA does carry on here, if they decide to come back and play after all the boycotting and stuff, it would not shock me to see a Miami Heat and Milwaukee Bucks Eastern Conference Finals. I would not be shocked to see that.
Yeah, and obviously the Miami Heat played really good. The last 4 games just really have given the Pacers a run for their money. And it's unfortunate, too, for Nate McMillan. Obviously, a really good coach, been in the playoffs the last 5 years, but just could never get past that first round, unfortunately. And it was interesting, too, because just 2 weeks ago, Nate McMillan actually received a contract extension with the Pacers. So, I mean, obviously it only took 2 weeks, and I think the Pacers expected that, he was going to not get swept and even maybe move on in the playoffs. Obviously, that was not the case. Obviously, like you mentioned, a hard team in Miami to have them in the first round. And it's unfortunate, too, because obviously they didn't have Domantas Sabonis at the bubble recovering from injuries, and as well as Victor Oladipo, too, just still kind of recovering from his injury. Obviously, he kind of has to still kind of get back in the flow of things. Not 100% still. There's been a lot of talks, too, as well, that Victor Oladipo actually would just be traded to other teams before even giving him a contract extension. So it's going to be interesting to see if the Pacers are just going to kind of blow it up and kind of start over. Obviously, Oladipo was very promising before he got hurt, and kind of things have turned for the worse. But maybe they'll just try to build around T.J. Warren, who was playing really good in the bubble and still played pretty good for the most part, during the regular season as well. So it's going to be interesting to see kind of what the Pacers do. But yeah, I think Nate McMillan, has we'll obviously talk about it too, but I think he definitely has the opportunity to coach in the future for other teams. But yeah, you got to give credit to the Miami Heat. Have a really deep bench, and everybody's been playing well in the Heat. And Eric Spoelstra, just a phenomenal coach.
Yeah,
very really
phenomenal.
Every year you expect the Heat to be in the playoffs, and but yeah, no, they just had a remarkable couple of years, and yeah, I definitely think Miami Heat and Milwaukee Bucks Eastern Conference Finals could be very interesting, and could be very close games throughout that series.
Boy, they certainly would be. And kind of go back to the Pacers here too. For the past 3 years, it's been 3 years of first round playoff exits right there for them. So, as people would say, why would you just kind of blow it up right now when you've been going to the playoffs and stuff? Well, do you want to keep on having these type of performances year after year where you're just going to the playoffs and then in the first round you're packing your bags, going to your vacation homes, watching the playoffs from there? Or would you rather, okay, maybe now's the time we need to trade away some guys, bring in some new young pieces here for the long term, and then kind of go from there? Whereas that when you get back into playoff contention, because we know in the NBA, it's a pretty quick retool or rebuild, whatever you want to call it. So we've seen teams kind of, hey, they have to trade away some guys. They won't be as competitive as they were possibly the year before, but eventually, though, they will come back within maybe the next season or two. Now, if you're Chicago, it's going to be probably 1,000 years before that happens. Hopefully right now, though, actually. But that was back when Gar and Pax, though, controlled the team. But I think for a team like the Pacers, now's the time that, hey, you have to look and see, hey, who do we keep? Who do we have to maybe say farewell to and try and get something good in return if they do make those trades? But I think right now, though, for the Pacers, do you want to keep having these types of performances, first round playoff exits, or do you want to have to say, okay, we're going to do some retooling here. We may not be competitive, but then once we get back to that contention, though, we'll be able to advance further into the playoffs, and maybe, I know this might be kind of a stretch right now, but maybe to the NBA Finals. Who knows?
Yeah, I think only time will tell. Obviously, they have a plan, and that first part of the plan was to get rid of Nate McMillan, and obviously, kind of like I mentioned, Old Depot might be next on that. So
Yeah.
it's going to be interesting to see kind of what the Pacers do in the offseason, and all the teams too, for the most part, what they're going to do, because it's a very quick turnaround with the season ending in October and then kind of getting started around the December area. So it's going to be interesting to see what teams do, and it's just only a matter of time before kind of what we see what happens with the league.
Yeah, absolutely. Definitely going to be an interesting offseason for sure, because we know some coaches have been fired, 3 of them that we know for sure, which we'll get into here in just a little bit. But now kind of focusing now on some more games here. The Rockets and the Thunder. Boy, just last week we were talking about these two teams, the Rockets being up 2-0. We were talking about the Thunder. They have to come back and do something here if they want to contend in this series, and they have done that so far.
Oh, yeah.
Tying the series up at 2 apiece right now. Just being a very good performance by this team. The Thunder, of course, when I saw them out when I was in New York back in March, just days before the pandemic struck down the NBA. It was great to see Chris Paul play. Just what a phenomenal player he still is today. Just a great teammate all around, sharing the basketball. And I think no doubt he's been a huge part for the Thunder and why they've been able to kind of maintain this type of success still, even in the Kevin Durant and the Russell Westbrook post era. So it's been really cool to see right here by the Thunder. And just overall, I mean, for the Rockets still, man, you're thinking, hey, we're up 2-0 right now. Series is going our way. But then Westbrook gets hit with the injury bug right there. Of course, he's been out of this playoff series. But still, though, just going out there and playing good basketball. But now here you are now saying, oh, now the series is tied at 2 apiece. The Thunder have momentum on their side now, where now we've lost 2 straight. But now what can the Thunder do to try and come back and at least take away Game 5? Again, if we do have a Game 5, that's going to be the most interesting part for sure to think about. But boy, like I said, for the Thunder, just a very good performance they've had the past 2 games. So, but for the Rockets, though, they definitely have to be feeling a lot of, it's not been what they want to recently. But you can't count them out either, too, just yet.
Yeah, obviously the Thunder have been underdogs all year. When the season started during the regular season, the Thunder only had a 0.2% chance to make the playoffs, and look where they are now. So obviously the Thunder have been playing great. Coach Billy Donovan has been doing an excellent job coaching the team, and having Chris Paul on the team, and Gillage Alexander has been playing really good for the Thunder as well. And Schroeder off the bench in this one scored 30 points, so definitely needed his scoring. Coming off the bench for the Thunder. So just an overall really good, close, contested game, and it's going to be interesting to see if the Thunder and Rockets do play in the future. Obviously, we know that Game 5 was supposed to be this afternoon. We're going to have to see if Westbrook comes back, if he's no longer injured, because obviously we know that what he's capable of. Being out there for the Rockets. So it's just going to be interesting to see. And the longer they kind of wait or decide to figure out how long the boycotts are gonna take, it could be interesting to see if that plays in favor of the Rockets or not.
Absolutely. And kind of go back to Chris Paul right here. I know we talked about this last week, but it was so funny to hear about when he was traded to the Thunder, and people were saying, oh, it's just a matter of time before he gets traded to the Miami Heat, because that was a team that was kind of emerging to possibly land him. But now with the Thunder, him and Steven Adams have done a really good job playing together, working very well together as well. So boy, when you have a small chance to make the playoffs like the Thunder did, it really shows that Billy Donovan, boy, he knows what it takes to put together a good team. Obviously, I know he hasn't been to the NBA Finals just yet. His first year almost got there, but then of course they had that collapse there in the playoffs against the Warriors back in 2016. So I definitely think, though, for the Thunder, it's just been very impressive to see him play like this, and especially I know where James Harden and Russell Westbrook, 2 players that used to play for the Thunder, really. So this is definitely could have some type of meaning to them. Obviously, Westbrook hasn't played yet in this series, but still, though, playing against your former team, boy, that's something you probably did not expect to do there. But boy, it's just been a really good playoff series right now. And the Thunder, these past 2 games, again, it's just been a very dominant performance by them, just shooting the ball very well, rebounding well, sharing the basketball too. Chris Paul, we know he's the guy that can assist the ball very well. That's why he's sponsored by State Farm, of course.
Yeah.
No, it's just been a really good team to watch this season. I know they had kind of some struggles early on, and that's when we're saying, okay, come trade deadline, CP3 is going to be traded away. The Thunder will go through some retooling years, because when they traded away Paul George in that Clippers deal, the Thunder got a really good package in return with all those unprotected first round draft picks. So I thought that was that was good on their part. That could help them out in the future still, of course, at this time. But to see him still playing very competitive basketball here today, that's been very impressive as well.
Yeah, obviously give the Thunder a lot of credit. I mean, like I mentioned earlier, weren't supposed to make the playoffs. Weren't even supposed to be in this position, and here they are. So the last 2 games, Thunder played really well. Been close games, could have gone either way. Give obviously the Thunder credit. Played an amazing game, and really excited for Game 5 whenever that does happen, because I think it's gonna be very close once again. Obviously, both teams know that they're in it, and usually when that happens, it's gonna be good basketball for the most part.
Absolutely, no doubt. I think both these teams here will continue to come out and play very good, especially with the Rockets. I know it's been a couple of games for them, but they definitely still have, I think, good momentum on their side as well, and definitely be exciting to see how this all is going to play out still. Again, are we going to have Game 5 still? Or are we even going to have a really NBA playoff series still? Not just this series, but all these series as well. Something we'll have to keep on thinking about as time does carry on. Now to our last game here. Boy, this has also been a really fun series too to watch. Yeah. But Jazz and Nuggets, boy. I'll tell you what, for the Nuggets and Jazz, especially for the Nuggets, boy, this has just been really fun to watch right here. Both these teams. I know the Jazz had a chance to close out the series, but Denver said, nope, we're not done yet. We're still going to go out there and play our tails off, and that's what they did right there, especially Jamal Murray. He just a phenomenal game for him. He's just been on fire lately. Same with Donovan Mitchell, too, for the Jazz, but boy, this is the Jamal Murray show, I think, right here. Obviously, a slow start there for the Nuggets, but they came out, though, in the second half. It's not restart, it's where you finish. And, boy, they eventually, once they came together here, they found their groove. It was hard to stop them from there on out. They were in, basically, you could say, boy, they're basically kind of playing with a cheat code, it seemed like at times. Yeah. They were just on fire. And credit to the Nuggets, they've been kind of that quiet team in the West. It seems like they don't get talked about recently. It's all been about the Lakers, the Warriors, over the past couple years. But boy, the Nuggets, though, kudos to them for just hanging in there, being a really, you could say maybe a top 4, top 5 seed, just playing very competitive basketball still. And I think for this team, this is huge for them. I think definitely for Jamal Murray as well. Still 23 years old. He's very young, very talented. 33 points in the second half just to keep the team going. That just shows you right there that he put matters into his own hands. He led the team, and boy, they followed him, and look what happened. They just came out and got the win to stay alive, at least for one more game in this playoff series.
Yeah, it's been a really interesting playoff series. Obviously, there was times yesterday or the day before, whenever the game happened, I can't even remember. There's so many games going on at times. But it seemed like when they played this game that the Jazz were going to end up winning it. They just were a little bit more consistent at the beginning of the fourth quarter, but then Jamal Murray really started taking over. Obviously, Jokic had a really good first quarter. To help the Nuggets kind of stay in it when the Jazz were really just feeling things. But yeah, Jamal Murray, I mean, they would not have won that game without him just absolutely being on fire. As we saw him do a 360 layup in a game, and that was pretty fun to watch. Watch him do that over Rudy Gobert. But yeah, I'm definitely looking forward to Game 6, and it's going to be definitely a really interesting and again probably close game. Obviously, Donovan Mitchell and Jamal Murray are two rising stars that are going to be great for a very long time to come. Still very young as well, on really good teams, and that's why I'm really happy that this was a first round matchup, because I knew both teams would kind of give it what they had, and we certainly have seen that. And definitely happy that the Nuggets could stay alive for Game 6, because I think the Nuggets are going to make it certainly interesting, and they're not going to go out without a fight. So It's gonna be definitely fun to watch whenever Game 6 is. Obviously, it was supposed to be tomorrow, but I doubt it's going to be at this point in time. But if they end up playing, I think it's gonna be certainly a really fun matchup.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's definitely going to be something to watch for the Nuggets, and even if they do get eliminated from from the playoffs, no doubt I think going into next season they are going to be a team to watch out for out there in the Western Conference. Definitely going to be exciting to see this young team kind of come together. Obviously with Jamal Murray, Michael Porter Jr., those two young guys right there, I think are definitely going to be really good for years to come. Obviously, it depends on if Porter Jr. can stay healthy. That's going to be the big question, I think, for him. But I definitely would trust Jamal Murray kind of being now the leader of this team. So I'm definitely excited to see how this is all going to play out. It's just been a really good series so far. Donovan Mitchell for the Jazz, he's also been playing very good as well. This past game scoring 30 points. I believe, and also in the game before that scored over 40 points there. So he's just been really playing on fire here. Just really become now the leader of the Jazz right now. It's been really cool to see it again. These young players step up and kind of now be the leaders of their team, because we know that Luke is the leader of the Mavs. Of course, now Donovan Mitchell, you could say he's now the leader for for the Jazz. So I definitely think for these types of young players to just come out and just play phenomenal basketball, it's just been really cool to see. Like I said, a new generation really is on the rise right now here in the NBA, and definitely I think this series could possibly go to maybe, I know it might be kind of a bit of a stretch, but possibly a Game 7 as well. So I'm definitely excited to see how this series is going to play out. And like you said, Carter, really a good playoff series to start out with these two young teams, and I think this is only going to get better if they do carry on here.
Yeah, I think obviously, like you mentioned, really good starting playoff series. This game too was very close throughout. Obviously, both teams shot pretty similar. Nuggets had less turnovers, which ultimately probably helped them win this game for the most part. But yeah, ultimately just a really fun, exciting game. And yeah, I would not be surprised if it gets to Game 7. I really think the Nuggets have it in them to kind of get back from a 3-1 deficit. But yeah, just going to be a matter of when they end up playing those games, obviously.
Yeah, absolutely. It's just been a really good, a lot of good playoff matchups happening here, of course, now with today, with all the news happening that they are boycotting these games, which, again, I totally get that. I 100% support it because these guys care about these issues happening around here in the country. So I applaud them for doing that. I think we have to understand that they care about these issues as well. They're not just athletes. They care about what's happening in the country as well. So kudos to them for letting their voices, or for speaking up really, and hopefully that their voices are being heard. Hopefully that is the case right now. Now moving on now to some coaches here. I know we talked about with some coaches being fired. The first one was the Philadelphia 76ers former coach, Brett Brown. He was fired just a few days ago by the team, and he coached them for 7 seasons. Really came up in those tough years with Philadelphia when they were I know Joel Embiid was saying it's the process, things like that. But Brett Brown, though, once they were able to come together as a team, Joel Embiid, he missed his first 2 seasons, as we all know, due to the foot injuries he had. Ben Simmons missing his first season as well. But now that when they were able to come together as a team, put together some winning basketball there in Philadelphia, they just couldn't make it so far into the playoffs. And Brett Brown was relieved of his duties. And I think so. Some people were saying, "Well, why'd you fire a coach? He's been going to the playoffs the past, for the past 3 seasons." But when you go as far as the conference semifinals, you just have to look back and say, "Okay, are we where we want to be at right now, or do we need a new voice to be the coach?" And I do think a new voice does need to be out there in Philadelphia. I definitely think that could be really good. Kind of get maybe sort of a young coach out there to coach those players. I know Ty Lue, who used to coach the Cavaliers, took over for David Blatt, who was fired in the February of 2016. He led the Cavs to the NBA championship that following summer, took them to 2 more NBA finals there in 17 and 18, but was fired after an 0-6 start to the 2018-19 season. That was when LeBron left in the offseason to sign with the Lakers. But Ty Lue right now being an assistant to Doc Rivers on the Clippers. No doubt I think Ty Lue, it was kind of a bad break what he had there in Cleveland, because once LeBron left, pretty much every everybody left, it seemed like. Because once you lose your star player, nobody's going to want to be there. And for Ty Lue, he was put in a tough spot where it wasn't kind of fair. But now with him being on Doc Rivers' coaching staff, Doc Rivers, as we all know, he is one of the, you can say, one of the all-time great coaches. He did a great job in Boston. He's done a really good job with the Clippers in Los Angeles. And I think with Ty Lue kind of now being in that assistant role to kind of maybe learn some new things. If he does want to be a head coach again in the NBA, which I think is very well possible, I think him in the Sixers could do, that could be a really good team there for him. But now going back to Brett Brown, though, it's just been the past couple seasons. You've looked at the team itself, struggling very badly at first, but then once they were able to come together there with Joel Embiid and Ben Simmons and some other players as well, they signed Al Horford in the offseason last year. So I think for the Sixers, they do need a new voice if they do want to keep on contending for many years to come and possibly get to the NBA Finals.
Yeah, obviously, I think a lot of people in the basketball community definitely knew it was coming. Obviously, the Sixers did miss Ben Simmons' presence out there, which I definitely think could have been a lot closer series than it was against the Celtics. But I think it was just time for a change for the Philadelphia 76ers. I was thinking last year when they obviously lost in Game 7 to the Raptors from Kawhi's incredible shot, that, if he wasn't fired that season, it would probably be the next, unless they made it to obviously the finals or obviously won the finals or anything like that. So obviously it was not the case, got out at the first round. I knew it was coming. It just was only a matter of time. But yeah, it's going to be interesting to see kind of who takes over for the 76ers. Obviously, you mentioned Ty Lue, really good coaching candidate. Coach LeBron during their championship run. So obviously he has some championship experience that he could bring to the 76ers. And, Elton Brand has already said that he's not looking to trade Joel or Ben Simmons, which was kind of a topic that maybe a lot of people were thinking, okay, well, you got to trade Simmons or you got to trade Embiid. But it looks like he wants to keep the pieces together and just kind of complement them a little bit better. So does that mean maybe get rid of Tobias Harris or Al Horford? I think, it definitely could be. But, with those contracts, I mean, who would really want to take those players at this point? Obviously, Al Horford was a beast with the Celtics and even the Hawks. But, he's really struggled with the 76ers. So maybe just a coaching change, find a better position for him, could ultimately make him play better. But, it's going to be interesting to see kind of what the 76ers do. But, yeah, I think they're still a really good team. And I don't think they need to blow it up just yet. I think, I think they still have a lot of good pieces around them. I think they just need maybe a new coach, put some new systems around, and kind of go from there. And then if that doesn't work, then you could possibly think about either, getting rid of Simmons or Embiid, or if not both of them. Yeah,
no, it really pisses me off when people say that when they fire a coach, then these players need to be traded too, because that just doesn't make any sense to me, because Joel Embiid and Ben Simmons are still young players. They still have a lot of potential, I think, to show off. They still have a lot to prove. And so I definitely think with firing Brett Brown, yes, they are going to get a new coach, but I think a new coach, though, is going to help this team only get better for these two young players. And for Al Horford, yes, he was a stud with the Hawks and with the Celtics. Not what he was with the stud he was with the Sixers, but maybe you can find a new coach, kind of find him, get into a new role where he can excel there and help the team out, because that's really why they signed him, was to get that team to the next level, because he's been there before and stuff, going to the playoffs consecutive years, going pretty far too, and that's why they really signed him. And especially he's familiar there playing against the Celtics, or playing with the Celtics, but now he's going to in the same division there when he left. So I think for Al Horford, yeah, I think they do get a new coach. They find a new role for him and just try to maybe see where he can excel at, find his strengths. Don't make him into somebody he's not going to be. Find his strengths, and I think that's going to be the really big thing right there for him. And I'm definitely curious to see how the Sixers are going to deal with this head coaching, with the process, because we know some teams out there, of course, we know teams like Chicago are looking for a new coach right now. And now, of course, with the Pacers, we talked about Nate McMillan as well here. So McMillan getting fired after 3 or 4 seasons there with the Pacers. Like we talked about earlier, it's been nothing but first round exits right there for him in the past 3 seasons. His first year didn't make it to the playoffs, but over the past 3 years, just hasn't been what they wanted to be. Obviously, they traded Paul George, but then they still contended very well. Still won a lot of basketball games. Still made it to the playoffs in that season when they traded him the following off season. But I think now for the Pacers, you just got swept by the Miami Heat. You're kind of at a point now where do we go from here? Do we do some retooling with the roster? Do we bring in a new young head coach to work with this younger team, or do we just kind of stick with our guys right now, bring in a new coach and hope for the best? I mean, really, I think right now, doing some retooling. I know for fans that would not be the way they want to go because they don't want to go from being a playoff team to a team where all of a sudden they're not going to be in the playoffs for maybe a season or two. But you got to think long term here. I think that's going to be the big thing right here for the Pacers is thinking long term. And Carter, you mentioned how some players could also be traded away too in order to get this team to where they eventually want to be at in the future. So all going to be really curious to see how this is all going to play out. Nate McMillan, like we talked about, getting the contract extension just 2 weeks ago, and now he's out of a job. So, yeah. I mean, boy, you get a contract extension, you get paid, kind of secure yourself up, but then 2 weeks later, you're out. Tough business, as we all know.
Yeah, absolutely. And, I don't think this is the last we will see of Nate McMillan. I definitely think he's still a head coach in this league, and he will find a spot, whether it be with the 76ers or even maybe the Pelicans or another team, or maybe, goes back to an assistant coach. I definitely see him being a coach in this league, though, no doubt about that. I think the Pacers really just kind of took a hard look in the mirror and just decided to kind of reconstruct the team, if you will. And I definitely think we're going to see some serious offseason moves with the Pacers this season, or this offseason, I should say, because you definitely know that, if they got rid of him, they're ready to kind of start from ground zero, if you will. Obviously, keep a couple of their big guys. Obviously, like I mentioned, maybe trade Oladipo because he only has 1 year left in his contract, and maybe they don't feel like paying him because of his injuries, and also he hasn't really played great in the bubble. So it's going to be interesting to see, but I definitely could see them, keeping Sabonis. He's a hell of a player. Obviously just a little injured, but we'll have to wait and see kind of what happens with that. But yeah, it's definitely an interesting time to be an NBA fan. That's for sure.
Yeah, it definitely is. Really, it's just been a really, like you said, a very interesting time for sure, and definitely going to be curious to see how it's all going to play out. Now moving on now to Alvin Gentry, who was fired by the Pelicans here. For the Pelicans, over the past couple of years, just hasn't been where they want to be at as well. I know it's been kind of a tough couple of years for them, obviously with Anthony Davis, trying to kind of build around him, get to the playoff contention to where you want to be at. But then, of course, he eventually wants out. He gets traded to the Lakers. You draft Zion to kind of, okay, he's going to be our future now. Because really that trade, honestly, was a win-win for both sides when you look at it. Brandon Ingram, Lonzo Ball, you draft Zion to get that younger team there in New Orleans. So I definitely think that was a good deal by them. But unfortunately for Alvin Gentry, it wasn't enough to keep his job. Obviously, we know that the Pelicans were on the verge of possibly making the playoffs. But when they came back from the hiatus because of the pandemic, they just couldn't close it out, and unfortunately for Alvin Gentry, it cost him his job. And for Gentry, it's just kind of been his coaching career hasn't been bad, but he hasn't been great. Only been to the playoffs just a handful of times. So really, it's just you look at overall his record, just hasn't been where they want to be at. I think for getting a younger coach for the Pelicans, that's where I think they should lean into. But obviously, you had to get the best one that you think is going to be good for your team, whether they're older or younger. You get the best one that you think is going to work out for you.
Yeah, I think it's going to be a tough decision for David Griffin. Obviously, used to be the Cavs GM, and now is the Pelicans GM. We know what he's capable of. He's made smart decisions in the past with the Cavs. So yeah, it's going to be interesting to see who they hire. I think Nate McMillan obviously would be a really good candidate for the Pelicans. I think it's kind of a similar situation that was in Indiana with the kind of players around them, and I think it's kind of a similar situation in New Orleans. So maybe he would adjust really well to that situation. But yeah, it's only a matter of time to kind of see what happens with that. But I definitely think it was time for Alvin Gentry to be moved on from the Pelicans. Obviously, it was probably coming if the Pelicans didn't make the playoffs, which was only just a matter of time after it was announced that they didn't make it. They didn't really play that good in the bubble. The Grizzlies didn't play really that good in the bubble as well, but they kind of exceeded expectations for this season in general. So obviously they've been rebuilding the last 2 years. So a lot of young teams, a lot of young players still kind of trying to figure things out here. I definitely think a new coach in New Orleans will be a good thing rather than a bad thing. So it's going to be interesting to see who they hire, though. I'm excited.
Yeah, absolutely. It's just going to be something to definitely keep your eye on and just see what they want to do right here. Obviously, we know about the Pelicans. They got a very young upcoming team, even after they traded away Anthony Davis. But I'm definitely excited to see what they're going to do here with this new type of direction that they want to go in with a new coach. I think getting somebody younger would be ideal. But like I said, you do what you got to do. You get the best candidate that's out there. And I think that's what they have to do. So really excited to see how this is all going to work out. But yeah, some coaches right now looking for jobs. And I can definitely see Nate McMillan still landing with the team. I think that's a good thing for him. Brett Brown, it just depends on what's out there for him. But Alvin Gentry, his days as a coach might be over, but we'll see what happens with that. Maybe might give it one last shot with the team. But until then, though, I think his days as an NBA coach, they could be over. So we'll see how that's all going to work out. So last Sunday, Kobe Bryant would have been 42 years old. And then the following day, on Monday, which was 8/24, out in Orange County in California, that is Kobe Bryant Day out there. And 8/24, of course, why? Because Kobe Bryant, at first he wore number 8 in his career, and then he switched to 24 about halfway through during his 20-year career with the Lakers. Since a tragedy happened there with Kobe, it's no doubt it's been pretty tough. It's been very tough at times, especially for me personally. I know I'm not trying to have people feel sorry for me at all, but as we all know, January 26th, that is my birthday, and to me that day will always, I will always remember that day for not just my birthday, but because of what happened, just a terrible tragedy that had happened. And Kobe was somebody who I loved. I started watching the NBA when I was about probably in 5th or 6th grade, because I know I really paid attention to the 2008 NBA Finals when they played against the Boston Celtics. They lost, but boy, that championship matchup was still very much fun to watch. But then the next 2 seasons, though, Kobe and the team came out and won 2 straight championships, one against the Magic, and then got revenge on the Celtics there in 2010. So that's definitely my moments to me that will always stick out to Kobe. Obviously, the 81-point game, that one will always think about too. But more importantly, I think his very last game, dropping 60 points.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Boy, just what a game. For a team like the Lakers, they were really struggling at times, just going through those rebuilding years before they were able to get guys like LeBron, Anthony Davis. Of course, with the draft, they got the D'Angelo Russell, Brandon Ingram before they eventually departed and went to different teams. But to see that the Lakers, though, Kobe stuck with them through the tough times still in order to kind of get the team back to where they wanted to be at. And I think for Kobe, here's a guy that really, not just as a basketball player, but he fought for women in professional sports. He was big on that. Mm-hmm. And I think he really cared about several issues going on today too. And to see him not there still, of course, when fans are allowed back in the Staples Center, when the Lakers do return to Los Angeles, playing there for their home games, it will be weird not seeing him there courtside for some games, cracking jokes to the players, especially to LeBron. Yep. I know him and Dwight Howard had some fun moments this year too. We know about their relationship during their tenure there, where Howard's, when he was there for his first stint, was pretty rocky. But I think, though, they came to understand that they really appreciated each other during that time. So Kobe, no doubt, those moments to me will always stick out to me the most. Not just his playing abilities, but also what he meant to off the court as well. Like I said, he was big on women in professional sports. Really said, hey, they can do anything that men can do. And I thought that really that showed what character that he had as well. He cared so much about them. And I think, though, for Kobe, his legacy he may not be here in person, but no doubt though his spirit and his legacy will always not live on with the Lakers, but all around in the NBA as well.
Yeah, obviously, terrible tragedy on January 26th. I remember sending you a text message, and then about 30 minutes later, the news kind of got out, and it was terrible, man. It was just awful. But yeah, I just remembering how good of a player he was, but also how good of a person he was as well, especially towards the end of his career. And he was really, starting to do some good in the world. Obviously, like you mentioned, really big in the WNBA kind of scene. And obviously his daughter Gianna was really into basketball, and a lot of people thought that she could even go pro in the WNBA. And obviously it's unfortunate that we'll never obviously be able to see that from her. But I would say probably my favorite Kobe moment was when he dropped 60. I wasn't, I didn't watch basketball too much when I was growing up, and I didn't really, I started watching, a few years kind of after Kobe was what he was, that elite player, and obviously the injuries kind of plagued him and things like that. But I remember how big of a deal it was because, that was just a regular game against the Jazz, but ESPN actually put it on ESPN2, and the reason why they didn't move it is because the Warriors were trying to break history going for the 73-9 record that year, and they were playing Memphis, and ultimately they did end up winning that game. But I remember I didn't even care about the Warriors game. I just wanted to see Kobe's last game, and it was such a big deal, and he certainly played. Obviously, he got like a lot of shots. I can't even remember, the percentage of makes and misses and things like that. But all I know is he scored 60 points, and what a hell of a performance for a legend. And obviously, it's unfortunate that he's no longer here, and obviously all the victims as well of the helicopter crash are no longer here as well. Just a very sad day. But it's good to kind of remember his legacy and what he meant to the game of basketball, as well as kind of what he was doing the last few years when he was retired.
Absolutely. Seeing the impact that he made off the court, I think, was very special. He not only cared just about basketball, period. He cared about life. He was a great father to all of his 4 kids, a great husband to his wife, Vanessa, and I think it's unfortunate though that he's not here still, but no doubt I think like I said, he'll always live on though in many people's hearts, and especially all around the NBA as well. Definitely, it was a very tough day, but still got to remember the good times though. That's what it really comes down to, is remembering the good times, because Kobe wouldn't want us to be sad forever. He wanted, talking that deep voice of his and say something sarcastic. So Kobe is always somebody who. 41 years, young. That's just terrible. But no doubt, I think he'll always live on though in many people's hearts, and he'll always he'll always have something special for the Lakers, no matter what. If they do win the championship this year, Kobe's definitely going to be there in spirit, no doubt. It's just been a really fun. Just been a very fun. He was very fun to watch, and. That 60-point performance, he shot the ball a lot, but hey, it's your last game. Do what you got. Hey, go all out. Go all out. Who cares?
Yeah.
Who cares?
Yep.
60 points, even if he scored 6 points, who cares?
Yeah.
He meant so much to the NBA and to all the fans, to many people in the all around the world as well. And I think though he'll always live on in many people's hearts. So now before we go to break here, we always do who you got here. We always pick a couple NBA games here. So I know right now it's kind of been a little, with what's been happening here with the games being postponed, and who knows if they'll even get going. I know we talked about this several times already, but still though, at least right now they are scheduled to go on right now. I actually did see a tweet from Woj that players that Chris Paul, Doc Rivers. We're meeting tonight. I know some other people were involved too to see where they want to go. So that definitely had to keep your eye on that for sure. But still, as of right now, though, some games are scheduled to still be played. But for the Lakers and Blazers, Game 5, obviously we know that game still has yet to be determined. But who you got? You know what? I do like the Lakers. They are my second team. Chicago's my first team, of course, but I think that the Blazers will come out and take Game 5 if they do play in that. I think for the Blazers, they're not going to go down just yet. They still got some fight left in them. I think they take this game if it does be played.
All right, yeah, interesting. Yeah, I got the Lakers winning this one. I think the last two games, the Lakers have just controlled. And I definitely think the Blazers are going to give them a fight for sure. But I think the Lakers are just going to be a little bit too much for the Blazers. And like I mentioned earlier, especially if Damian Lillard's not playing, that's going to be a huge factor in deciding that one. And obviously, it's still up in the air because we don't know when that game is actually going to be played.
Yeah.
So it's going to be interesting to see. Obviously, our predictions could change just depending on that just alone. But yeah, I give the edge to the Lakers. I think they've just really found their groove, and I ultimately think they're going to close it out when Game 5 gets played, whenever that is.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's a very good prediction right there too, because Dame's still being hurt. Who knows what's going to happen with that? Now moving on to the Nuggets and Jazz. I'll take the Jazz here in this game. I think they do close out the series. Denver, of course, Jamal Murray, phenomenal performance by him, dropping 42 points there in the last game. But I think the Jazz, though, they do come out here and take away Game 6 and advance on to the next playoff series. Donovan Mitchell, he's had a very phenomenal series, been dropping a lot of points here for his team. Rudy Gobert's done a good job as well, and just many other players too from Utah really coming together and putting up some really good performances. I definitely think for the Jazz, this is going to be a must-win game for them, because when you go into Game 7, boy, the Nuggets are going to be facing, they got momentum on their side as well. So I'll take the Jazz here in Game 6 if that does tend to be played.
And I got Nuggets winning this one. I think they're gonna make it interesting. And the last game that they played, they really showed me that they're not going out without a fight. And I definitely think they're gonna play really good. Obviously, Nikola Jokic had an excellent game. Jamal Murray had a really good game. I think those guys are gonna play well. As a couple of their bench players also, I think are gonna have really big games as well. I could definitely see this game going to 7 games, and that would certainly be exciting, because I would love to see a Game 7 between these two workhorses of teams, and I would love to see, obviously, Donovan Mitchell and Jamal Murray battle it out once again. Really great series. Ultimately, whatever happens, really good games that have been played. But yeah, for the most part, I got the Nuggets winning this one and taking it to Game 7.
All right, and for our last game we have here, we got the Clippers and the Mavs. Boy, Clippers having a very dominant performance here in this past game. 154 points scored by them. Obviously, Paul George and Kawhi, the two leading scorers for them. Boy, this is a tough one right here. I'm not going to lie. I'll take the Clippers here in this matchup. Dallas, I've given them so much credit on what they've been able to do. Luka has done such a great job this year. Kristaps Porzingis has done a great job as well. He's still been hurt, and Doncic dealing with kind of a nagging ankle injury still. Marcus Morris not being really smart out there. But I will take the Clippers here in this game. Boy, when you score 154 points, man, that's just really tough to, I think that's a tough break for the Mavs. How do you kind of come out and show what you can do still? I think the game will be close if it does be played, but I think overall the Clippers will come out. I think Paul George, boy, now that he's getting going now, he's going to be tough to stop. And same with Kawhi, too, as well. I think those two guys are really going to come out and continue to play very hot. And I think the Clippers will win Game 6 if that does be played.
Yeah, and I also have the Clippers winning this one. I think they really figured things out the last game. Obviously, scoring 154 points, that's a lot of points, especially in an NBA game, an NBA playoff game as well. So, like I mentioned earlier, the Mavericks 100%, 110% need Kristaps Porzingis in order for them to have a chance at winning this game. Obviously, Luka Magic in Game 4 proved, that they could come back and win that one. They were down by 20 at one point. Obviously, went into OT, scored the 3-pointer to ultimately win the game. But yeah, it's not going to be like that for Game 6 and possibly Game 7. They definitely need him back. But yeah, I definitely give the Clippers the win here. I think Kawhi's obviously, we know he's what he's done throughout the playoffs, throughout the last few years. He's been playing excellent, and as long as Paul George has a similar game to like he had last night, I definitely see the Clippers moving on to the next round.
Boy, it's going to be a lot of fun playoff matchups if these games do carry on. So I'm definitely excited to see how this is all going to play out. boy, it's just been a really crazy time right now. But right now, of course, with what's been happening here with the games being boycotted, and actually before we go to break here, I just want to point this out. 2 more MLB games were postponed today, so you can see a lot of teams right there really taking the time to meet up and deciding to say it's just not worth playing right now. We want to see, how things are going to play out. So I definitely give kudos to those 2 teams. I know it was the Dodgers and Giants that decided to postpone their game as well. And I think the Mariners game got postponed as well. So I think, hey.
That's the Padres.
Yeah, Mariners, Padres. Yep, exactly. So definitely been a crazy time right now, but hopefully things do tend to, get better. But only time will tell right now, but we'll just see what happens with that. All right, we are going to take our first break here and our only break. When we come back, we'll dive into some NFL talk. Earl Thomas has been really the hot topic here lately, being cut by the Ravens. Which team will he sign with? And also we'll give our predictions for the AFC and the NFC East. All that here when we come back from break. We'll be right back. Stay tuned. And welcome back to Time Out with the Guys. I am Brad Burton. This is Carter Foley. Had a good first half right there. I think we can all say good NBA talk. And now we're moving on to the NFL. The big topic, of course, of this past week has been Earl Thomas. Got into a fight there with his Ravens teammate, Chuck Clark, and eventually it led to Thomas being cut by the Ravens just 1 year into the big 4-year contract that he signed there with Baltimore after he departed the Seattle Seahawks. And obviously, Carter, you're very familiar with Earl Thomas, playing with Seattle for many years. Came up in 2010, won the Super Bowl with them back in 2013. Obviously, was a big part of that Legion of Boom there with them. Him, Richard Sherman, Michael Bennett, so many others. I know I'm forgetting. Of course, you can name all those guys, I'm sure. But for Earl Thomas, though, he goes off to Baltimore. Last year, the Ravens had a really phenomenal season, mainly because of part of Lamar Jackson being the MVP last season. But now Earl Thomas, though, being cut by Baltimore, getting into a fight there with his teammate, it eventually resolves in him getting released. But then you kind of starting to see about him. He was either late to meetings or he didn't even show up at all during his short stint with Baltimore. It kind of shows you there too that that him being a leader just was not there for Baltimore as they hoped when they signed him. Because we know that the past couple of years have been kind of tough for him. Really missed out much in preseason with the Seahawks back in 2018 before he eventually showed up to play in the regular season. But then just about 4 games into the season, he breaks his leg and gives Pete Carroll a little finger gesture with the middle finger. Yep. So not too happy with that. But now that he goes to Baltimore, he goes to a really decent team there. They made the playoffs for the past couple seasons, but now he's no longer with the team. No doubt I think he will sign with the team before the season does get going. Of course, we know that there's been a lot of safety measures going on because of the COVID-19 pandemic. But no doubt, though, I think he will be on a roster by the time week 1 does come around, I would say.
Yeah, I definitely think so, too. I would not be surprised. I mean, obviously, Earl Thomas, the last few years have been interesting for him. He's just had obviously, with the issue with the Seahawks, he flipped Pete Carroll off. And obviously, I remember watching that game, too, just being like, wow, that's unfortunate because I knew that was his last game as a Seattle Seahawk. Yeah. I just you knew it because it was a season-ending injury. You knew he's not coming back because we're not going to pay him. So obviously, I from a football side of things, why the Seahawks didn't sign him because of injuries in the past, and I think they're looking to move on from him, and they didn't really want to pay him, and he was kind of just trapped in a way. And obviously, it is unfortunate that he did have a season-ending injury, and I was glad last year that he did play really well with the Ravens, and he got some of his money. And then when the news broke out, I remember you telling me, that him and his teammate got in a fight. I'm like, oh, it's okay, it happens. Then the next day he's released, and I'm like, wow, that really escalated for the worse. So, I hope the best for him as a old time Seattle Seahawk. Obviously, I still hope and wish the best for him. But hopefully he can kind of realize some of his mistakes and maybe try to move on from that. And the next NFL team that he is on, maybe he reflects upon his actions the last few years and learns from it and becomes a better person, becomes a better teammate, becomes a better football player. Because ultimately, I think, his talent, I mean, no one's questioning his talent. We know how good he is on the football field, even with the injuries that he has had the last few years. But yeah, I just hope he learns from that. And I think, I think the next team that gets him, hopefully takes a chance on him and he does learn that. And hopefully it's a win-win for both sides.
Absolutely. I think when you look at Earl Thomas right now, being 31 years old, you want the leadership to be there for him. You want him to kind of be a mentor to the younger players that have been in the league for maybe just a couple of seasons or that just recently have been drafted there as well. You don't want to go out like that with the team where you were involved in a physical altercation with them. But I think this is definitely going to be hopefully a time where he's learned, he's reflected on what he did, and hopefully he becomes not just a better football player but also a better person and a better teammate as well. I think that's definitely going to be the biggest thing for him if he can try to become that type of guy. So hopefully that does tend to be the case for him. But I think right now, though, this is a time of reflection for him. what went wrong, and hopefully with Seattle too. I get the frustrations. You want to get paid. You want to secure up that that long-term contract, so that way when you do end up not playing anymore, you still have enough money in the bank in order to secure not just your future, but also your family's future as well. If you have kids, whatever the case may be. So I think that's what he was really thinking about there as well. So I think for Earl Thomas, now that he's no longer with the team, still again, probably going to have to get paid by the Ravens. But for right now, though, I think this is definitely going to be a time of reflection for sure. So I'm definitely curious to see how this is all going to work out for him. Obviously, I think the big question is if the team does decide to sign him, they are going to be taking somewhat of a risk, I would say. But eventually, though, right now, you have to think, though, how is he going to help out our team? Is he going to help us out win right away on defense? Because he's a very dominant safety, as we all know. Very terrific there in the defensive backfield for whoever he plays for. Last year for Baltimore, did a really good job. With Seattle, he was a stud there with them. Even after they started to see some guys go away, like Sherman, Michael Bennett, but still did a really good job. Even in 2018, his shortened season, that when he broke his leg in the fourth game, I think he had 3 or 4 interceptions already. He was on fire, but eventually then the injury came and got him and costed him the rest of the season. So I think for Earl Thomas, this is a time of right now where he just needs to reflect on what he did wrong, and hopefully he learns from it and he comes out with a new team, and he's just, and then players are saying he's been a really fun to play with. He's been great to look up to. He's helped us out a lot, but we'll see what happens with that.
Yeah, and obviously, he's had a couple of off the field issues that have happened. Obviously, his wife held a gun to his head, and we don't know obviously what what was going on with that, and there's some other things as well that has happened. So maybe it could have just been escalating for a while, and he's taking his frustration out on his teammates and things like that, and taking it out. And sometimes that happens, obviously. And just obviously wish the best for him. Hopefully he can come back, be on a new team, and kind of really just figure things out and do what he was, do what he's supposed to do, and just go play football, and also just be a good teammate at the same time. Because ultimately, we know that's what he wants at the end of the day. So.
Yeah, absolutely. I think this is just that point right now where he needs to understand that, it's been a pretty tough couple months for him. Like you said, his wife holding a gun to his head, and then now he gets cut by the Ravens after a physical altercation with a teammate. So hopefully things do work out the best for him. Eventually he does clean up things that he needs to, and he comes out. He does a really good job if he decides to play in this coming season. Obviously, we know that this season holds a lot of unknowns at this point, but it's just a day-by-day process right now. But like I said, we'll see what happens with that. It's just going to be really curious to see how this is all going to play out for him and for whatever team does tend to sign him. Okay, so usually now, the past couple weeks, ever since we started this show, we give our predictions for 2 divisions. And now this is our last one that we're doing here with the AFC and the NFC East. So starting off here first with the AFC East, my predictions, I got the Patriots going 11-5. Some people were saying I was crazy for that because obviously with the Patriots, they lost Tom Brady here this past offseason. But I still think, though, they have a really solid team around them. It's not just one player specifically. I think it takes an entire team to win. Bill Belichick is still there. He knows how to win, unless if he decides to pull out some cheating strings. But I'm just kidding. But seriously, I mean, they have been involved in that the past couple seasons. First it was Deflategate. You got the video, the whole video scandal happening back in 2007. Spygate is what it was. So, whatever. That's in the past now. Patriots, I still think, have a dominant team there around them. They obviously signed Cam Newton this past offseason. Hopefully he can come out and play very good. Buffalo 10-6, I think, is what they'll go. Josh Allen's I was pretty critical of him. I didn't think he was going to be be good, good at the pro level. But boy, he's really done a good job so far. Last year with Buffalo, did a really phenomenal job there, taking them to the playoffs. I think Buffalo continues to go and have some good winning ways in 2020. The Jets, well, they're the Jets. 6-10 for them. Sam Darnold, I mean, he has potential, but they just need to get better players around him. Le'Veon Bell last year, he came back his first year after sitting out all of 2018 because of the contract dispute there with Pittsburgh. Hopefully he can rebound this year and have a good season, but we'll see what happens with that. Miami, 5-11 for them, I believe. I know it's been kind of last couple of years have been pretty down for them. I still think this year will be a year of kind of rebuilding, retooling the roster a little bit. They drafted Tua. I know he had the bad hip injury at Alabama, but he's healthy now. But I think the best thing for him is to sit out this year, kind of be the red shirt to Ryan Fitzpatrick, and then we'll see what happens with that. But I think, though, the Patriots, so they have the upper advantage here so far in this division, despite losing Tom Brady to the Buccaneers.
Yeah, and I also have the Patriots going 11-5. I think Bill Belichick has proven time in and time again that no matter who's on his team, they're going to come out with a positive record, and they've done that the last decade and a half. I mean, it's just been forever. So, and I think Cam Newton is a good, refreshing piece at the quarterback position, a little bit more mobile than Tom Brady, and maybe a little bit stronger too, and maybe won't go down as easy in the pocket. Obviously, we know there's some big guys in the league that could probably obviously wrap around Cam Newton, but think about it too. Cam Newton was an MVP in this league. He has been to a Super Bowl. And he, pretty much didn't play at all last season. Maybe played a few games and then obviously got hurt. So he's just been training, and Carolina kind of gave up on him, and he's used that as fuel to kind of get back to where he once was. And the Patriots took a chance on him, and Bill Belichick even said that he's been really impressed by Cam Newton because he's been actually staying a little bit longer after practice and reading the playbook a little bit more. So I would not be surprised too if Cam Newton gets a starting job with the New England Patriots start week 1. So I give them 11-5. I think they're going to be really good, and obviously Bill Belichick has been a defensive genius too, so I have no questions about the defense as well. And also I give the Patriots credit too, just because of the division is pretty weak for the most part. Obviously the Bills, which I'll get into next, have improved. Their defense has been really good the last few years and everything like that. And they're starting to kind of figure something out. But the Jets and Miami Dolphins, I mean, those are pretty much just free wins at this point. So I give them 11-5, and moving on to the Buffalo Bills now, I give them 9-7. I think they're still not going to be, they're not the top dogs quite yet. Josh Allen still has a lot of promise as a young QB in this league. I think they got Diggs from Minnesota, so that will help as an offensive weapon for them certainly, and their defense will be good. So yeah, it's gonna be interesting to see what Buffalo does next year as well. But I definitely give them an advantage, and I wouldn't be surprised too if they go 10-6 as well. And then for the Giants and the Miami Dolphins, or excuse me, not the Giants, the Jets, the Jets and the Miami Dolphins, I have them both going 5-11. It's going to be interesting to see Sam Darnold play a full season because obviously he got mono last season and didn't play like half the games because of it. So, I still think the Jets have a lot of work to do. Adam Gates obviously is, a lot of questions about him, and new Seahawk Jamal Adams is, he came from the Jets and he's talked a lot of, bad things about the Jets as well. So, it's going to be interesting to see what the Jets do. I think they're going to, they're not going to have a fantastic season. I think they still need a lot of reworking to do, and I think it starts from the top all the way down to the bottom. For the Dolphins, I think they're making strides. I could even see them, being 6-10 or even 7-9 next season, but I'm just being kind of a little bit realistic. I think they're going to go 5-11 as well. I think they still have, quite a bit of work on their hands. I think they still have maybe about 2 more years before they start trying to compete, at the playoff level. I think they're still missing a few parts, especially on defense. Their defense has struggled the last few years, and obviously getting Tua will help them at the offensive side of things, and hopefully Ryan Fitzpatrick can kind of mentor him, and I wouldn't be surprised if we see Tua next season maybe get some starting opportunities during the regular season. So it's going to be interesting to see, but yeah, definitely give the Patriots winning this division with ease.
All right, now moving on to the NFC East here. So my predictions are this division I know has really been it's not been really strong the past couple seasons. Last year it was really one of the worst divisions in all of football. The Eagles just getting in at 9-7, I believe, last year to get into the playoffs. But this year, I think the Eagles will win the division here once again. Going 10-6 at best if they can stay healthy. Carson Wentz, he's been really the guy. When he's healthy, he's on, but when he's not healthy, he really tends to not just be himself. But I think if the Eagles can kind of stay on track here, do what they got to do, I think they could go 10-6 at best if they can stay healthy. So that's my prediction right there. For the Dallas Cowboys, it's the Cowboys. Jerry Jones, I've never really been a fan of the guy. I think they go 8-8 at best. They can have whatever they want in the offseason. They can have a good offseason, a good draft, whatever they want. They'll still finish 8-8, and that's what they will go. And that's not my opinion. That's a guarantee right there. Guarantee, not an opinion. I don't care what.
Clip that.
Yeah, for sure. I don't care what Cowboy fans have to say out there. Cowboy fans are so obnoxious. They are so obnoxious. All they do is talk, but yet their team is so below average. They are so mediocre. Dak and Zeke. Zeke is great. I love Zeke. Dak is so overrated. He wants to get paid, $40+ million a year.
He wants $100 million a year.
Yeah, oh my God. I would not be shy to be asked for that. He will ask for that. He is so overrated. Okay. With the Giants.
Confusion. Two teams in New York.
Well, two teams that play at the same stadium. So
yeah.
I totally get that. With the Giants, last year was Eli Manning's farewell season. Well, eventually it became his farewell season. He's no longer there. This is Daniel Jones's team right now. Same with Saquon Barkley. So I think those two guys can do a really good job there for the Giants. 7-9, I think, is what they will go. Make some positive strides this year. I know that's kind of maybe some fans might think that's a stretch right there, but I think that could be the case right there for them. And for the Washington football team, Alex Smith, I mean, kudos to him. He has made such a remarkable recovery. I will give him all the credit. If he plays at all this season, if they decide to put him in at least for one snap, and he just hands the ball off, that's going to be such a milestone right there for him. I mean, that is such a great moment. If that does tend to be the case, that would be phenomenal if that does happen, if he does get to play at all in a game. But I think for the Washington football team this season, they will go 5-11. New coach there for him, and Ron Rivera, who unfortunately was diagnosed with cancer last week. So send our best wishes there to him. Still plans to coach. Says it's not serious. Very treatable, which is good. But still not what you want when you go into a team with your first year to have to deal with cancer. That's just a terrible disease, as we all know. So best wishes to Ron Rivera, former Bears defensive coordinator, by the way. Hey. So great coach right there. I know they will be in good hands with him, but I think 5-11 for Washington this season.
And for mine, I also have the same kind of ranking, but a little bit different records. Obviously, I have the Eagles also going 10-6 next season. I think Carson Wentz will have a little bit better season. Hopefully, some of his wide receivers will be able to catch the ball a little bit better. It just seemed like the Eagles just had an off year last year. It seemed like they were at one point an incredibly good team. Honestly, they won a Super Bowl. Obviously, Carson Wentz was hurt and Nick Foles took over, but still, we knew what that team was capable of. And Doug Peterson has done a fantastic job with the Eagles, and I expect them to definitely win the division next year with him in charge. And the Dallas Cowboys. I was thinking about putting them at 8-8, but I'm going to give them the benefit of the doubt. 9-7. They got a new head coach in there, Mike McCarthy, taking over for what's his name? I'm drawing a blank now. Dallas's head coach.
Oh, that's head coach Jason Garrett.
Jason Garrett. Sorry, he's irrelevant now. So.
No, he's gone now. No, he's gone.
I'm just kidding. Yeah. But anyway, I think Mike McCarthy will be a good refresher for the team, and obviously you have Zeke, and I definitely agree with you with Dak Prescott being a little bit overrated, but I definitely think he can still play at a fairly high level as a NFL QB. So I'm going to give them the benefit of the doubt, say they go 9-7, but still lose the division and still will not make the playoffs as for the Cowboys. And for the Giants, I have them going 8-8. Daniel Jones, I think he's going to be really good next year. I also think Saquon Barkley is going to be excellent as always, and he missed a few games last year with injuries, so hopefully he'll be refreshed and ready to go for the next season. I definitely think this is the uptrend for the Giants, and hopefully they can make some positive strides and hopefully make it to the postseason, because they are one of my favorite teams as well, besides the Seahawks. And then for the Washington football team, I also have them going 5-11. I think there's still just a lot of question marks. Obviously, getting Ron Rivera was a really good first start for that team. I know that obviously, like you mentioned, he was diagnosed with cancer, but obviously it's very treatable. But yeah, we're obviously sending our best wishes to him, and hopefully it's a speedy recovery and he can get back out there on the football field and start coaching again. With his new team. And obviously for Alex Smith, I know he's been cleared to play, and obviously, seeing some video, it doesn't seem like he should really be out there. I don't know if he would be incredibly wise, but I'll have to wait and see, and ultimately at the end of the day, it's his decision what he wants to do. But when he was out there with the team before, obviously that gruesome leg injury, he was doing really good for the most part. So, it's just a matter of time, and, hopefully for the most part, he feels really confident in the medical doctors and are giving him the best advice possible if they do believe it is safe. And, of course, if they say it's okay, then sure, let him go out there again and, just let him do what he wants to do, because he's been a fantastic quarterback for many years now with the 49ers and obviously now the Washington football team as well. So it's gonna be interesting to see. But yeah, I still think they're a few years away from reaching that point.
Yeah, I think people forget too is when back with Washington, Alex Smith, when he got there his first season, they were 6-3 by the time he got hurt.
Yep.
So they were having a really phenomenal season right there before he suffered the gruesome leg injury. And boy, it didn't really seem, hey, he broke his leg, and you're thinking, oh, that's such a huge blow for the team because he breaks his leg, he's out for the season. But boy, it turned out to be very more severe than what it was. So, boy, the recovery that he made, very phenomenal. I know, of course, when you kind of go back and see, I know ESPN did a thing on him, and boy, those pictures were pretty gruesome right there. They were pretty graphic. So definitely want to be cautious with that. But boy, to see the recovery that he's made so far has been phenomenal. If he does go out there and play, if the doctors and the team medical staff feel safe for him to do it, then he should. But I totally get what you're saying there. Is it the wise choice right now? We'll have to wait and see. So definitely gonna be exciting to see him if he does go out there and play. Probably not, don't want to put him out there right away, of course. That's not what you want to do. But just wait and see how things are going. And if you feel good about putting him out there for some plays, go ahead and do it. Hey, show what he can do, because this would be a great story to talk about for sure if that does tend to be the case. Well, it's been a pretty good show, I would say, with all what's been happening so far. I know with the NBA, it's been crazy. Baseball, too. I know they're having some serious talks now with teams as well. It's been pretty tough right now for these players. They care a lot about these issues, and I definitely give 100% support to them for doing what they have to do. They care, and that's all. And I think it really shows you too that they don't care just about basketball. They care about life in general too. So definitely, kudos to them for, sticking up for themselves and making sure that they're not going to be put down at all.
Yeah, and obviously we'll have a lot more information next show on next Tuesday.
Definitely.
Regarding whether the playoffs are resuming or what's going on. With the NBA or the MLB. It's only a matter of time, kind of see what announcement those organizations and those leagues make. Based on all of what's happening, and obviously, the players are going to do what they think is right in this circumstance, and also. Obviously, they know that the coaches and the GMs and the owners have their back, especially in Milwaukee as well. Obviously, we saw a statement from them earlier today, basically just saying like, hey, we stand by our players. So, it's going to be interesting to see what happens, and I'm sure we'll definitely have some interesting topics next week regarding all of this.
Yeah, absolutely. It's going to be curious to see what happens here in the next coming days with the NBA. With baseball, I think it's a pretty good chance that they will, of course, carry on there. But, of course, they'll have to take some time to figure out what they also want to do as well. But, definitely been a really interesting time for sure to be a sports fan. I know 2020 has just been a year of you don't know what to expect right now. So we'll see what happens with that. But overall, though, it was good to be here tonight. This has been Time Out with the Guys, episode 3. As a reminder, you can like us on Facebook, follow us on Twitter, YouTube, and Twitch. And that's all we have for you tonight. So thank you again for tuning in tonight. Hope you enjoyed the show. And we'll be back here next Tuesday at 7 p.m. Get back to our normal scheduling right here. So looking forward to talking back here next week. I am Brad Burton. He is Carter Foley. Take care, and thank you for listening.